Monday morning here on HQ, and we're also calling it Dan Hurley Watch because it is on and popping. UConn men's head basketball coach told ESPN that the Los Angeles Lakers made their pitch for him to become the franchise's next head coach, but he loves what he has built with the Huskies. So what is he going to choose? Who will he choose to coach? We plan on hearing that decision from Hurley at some point today on Monday and see if he decides to leave those two-time defending champs as the Huskies. This is what Hurley had to tell ESPN, that the Lakers made a compelling case, that they presented a compelling vision, and he left extremely impressed with the Lakers VP/GM Rob Pelinka and owner Jeannie Buss to see if he wants to take that jump and join the NBA ranks and head coach the Lakers. Let's bring in our college basketball expert, Matt Norlander, now as we just wait to see what the decision from Dan Hurley is going to be. And Matt, what's the latest that you're hearing or what you're feeling right now with this situation?
As I come to you in the 10 a.m. Eastern hour here, my expectation is that we should, I'll put this, I would be surprised if we don't have word on Dan Hurley's decision by 1:30, 1:45 Eastern. I think learning sometime in the noon hour might be reasonable. The team is scheduled to convene later on this afternoon, has a scheduled practice. And if Dan Hurley decides to remain with UConn, I would think they would practice as scheduled. And if he doesn't, then that might not be happening. But you're getting closer and closer. This situation is so rare in that you have a high-profile coach, the best coach in the sport operating like that right now. Hurley is obviously, and this decision is so public and anticipated. And oh, by the way, it's coming in the middle of June. Like normally these kinds of decisions and of great consequence in college basketball, they're happening in mid-March, late March, sometimes in the first week or two of April. We remember all the chaos with John Calipari leaving Kentucky for Arkansas and then Mark Pope getting that job. We normally don't get this kind of attention and sport-altering decision here in the middle of June, but that's where we find ourselves. And so everyone, I come to you obviously from the nutmeg state of Connecticut, everyone around this state is on edge waiting for a decision to come in.
Yeah, so while you're there in the state of Connecticut, what do you think is the feel surrounding the Huskies program as they're in this period of just kind of uncertainty right now?
So I've spoken to, well, not just the people around the UConn program, people around basketball and the NBA. I've probably spoken to close to 40 people over the past 4 days or so about this. And that general pool of people, those are high-profile head coaches to scouts on NBA teams to prominent assistant coaches to you name it. I would say as of this morning, the slight lean is that people expect him to stay. But there are a few people that are like, hey, listen, man, he flew out to LA and that thing was done within hours of him landing in California. So there are very polarizing opinions. Now, in terms of people that are invested in the UConn program, around the UConn program, since the news broke, there has been cautious optimism. And I would say that has been, not by all, but by some, that has been only reinforced here. Again, I want to stress this cautious optimism that he will ultimately decide to stay with UConn. The biggest reason being that he is an East Coast guy, Northeast, born and bred, lived his entire life. This would be such a drastic change. And who's to say that an NBA job a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, that's much closer to his home base couldn't necessarily open. So I would keep that in mind as well as we get closer and closer here. But it is intriguing that he went out, interviewed on Friday, got back on the plane, came home Saturday. I can't help but notice he went to a Billy Joel concert at Madison Square Garden. UConn fans have been reading into every single possible thing on this. He didn't linger in LA. It was a one-day thing. He flew back and has mulled over it. Obviously, as we talk here in real time, Dan Hurley has made his decision privately. He just not has shared that decision publicly. And it's a matter of when and how long before it leaks out. It should not be too much longer here.
So I'm being told in my ear Billy Joel has a song called Say Goodbye to Hollywood. I certainly did not know that. I don't listen to Billy Joel. But you mentioned cautious optimism that Dan Hurley will stay and remain with UConn. You mentioned that, sure, the NBA could come calling next year, but this is the Lakers that we're talking about. This is not a job that comes across every single year and becomes open. How much of the feeling do you think amongst Huskies could be just wishfully hoping that, oh, he won't turn us down, versus there's some true maybe legs to him coming back to UConn?
I think a lot of it's there. By the way, if we need to get you into The Stranger or Glass Houses, Zach, just let us know. We got some folks around you who might be able to mix up your Spotify playlist. I think there is some of that. I want to point out to our audience one particular thing that I think has impact. The Lakers is such a glamorous organization, but in talking to a variety of sources at the NBA level over the past 4 days or so, what the general public might not be aware of is the fact that the Lakers, they are a bit of a mom and pop shop. And the way that they actually run their organization is not like many other NBA franchises. And I'll just say this, that has not been framed to me in a complimentary light. So ultimately, it is the Lakers, a legacy franchise, 17 NBA championships. You get to live in LA. It's a big time thing. But if you peek under the hood there, the work that needs to be done and the reality of having that job might not be quite as glamorous as people might see from the outside. And maybe that will be a factor. Maybe that won't be a factor. Dan Hurley has told me multiple times over the years he does love fixing broken things. And the Lakers, to an extent, are obviously somewhat broken at this point. But here locally on the home front, yes, they are hopeful that Dan and his wife Andrea will choose to remain on the East Coast. And oh, by the way, in doing it, like the chance to go for a three-peat, it's a very real thing. It's super, super difficult. But if they actually did it, and it would be so hard to do, but if they did it, you're talking about the first coach since John Wooden to pull that off in men's D1 basketball. And that's all-time iconic status. I mean, to me, if Dan Hurley were to return to UConn and actually win a third straight NCAA championship, that cements him. Even though he has so many years to go, he's only 51. If he actually did that, would cement him as a top 10 all-time college basketball coach. And for the competitor in Dan Hurley, I have to believe that stuff like that really weighs heavily on him, in addition to Alex Caravan, who came close to leaving for the NBA draft, but ultimately decided to come back. Just kind of stuff like that. There are so many factors here. Getting close. Should have our answer very, very soon.
So as we sit here right now, your gut feeling, Dan Hurley will end up deciding on what?
I wondered if you were going to ask me that, because as I've been asking other people this question over the past few days, they inevitably then come back and ask me what my opinion is. I am of the slight lean that he will pick the Lakers. And my biggest reason for that is, had he returned, he went out to take this interview on Friday, returned back east on Saturday. Obviously, it's such a significant decision. But had he decided to want to stay at UConn, one easy option for him to do would have been to make that decision public and let everyone know on Sunday. Not that he had to. Today is actually the first day since Thursday the team is to be on campus. The players are there. The assistants are all there. So it does make some logistical sense why you might want to wait until today to tell everyone. But my slight lean is that he goes. But I have gotten such passionate responses, like definitive responses from people on head coaches in the Big East and people that know Dan well. Here's why he's going to stay, and here's why he's definitely gone. It's up to the man himself to let us know. And Dan, time is ticking. We need to know. We want to get on with our week and figure out just how much of a quake this will be to college basketball and the NBA.
Yeah, Dan Hurley, we are waiting on you. The time is ticking. The watch is going by second here on this Monday. We figure out if he wants to coach the Lakers or stick with UConn. Matt Norlander, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it, always on the spot with everything. And you can catch even more of him on the Eye on College Basketball, his podcast, along with Gary Parrish, because whether Hurley stays or if he leaves, this will be a topic that will be covered on the Eye on College Basketball podcast. So make sure you like and subscribe and get all that audio.